to another episode of Inside Eastern Utah. I'm your host, Scotty Draper, and we are here today with some seasoned veterans of the American Legion. They have dedicated many, many years to American Legion. Especially in Price, they have been very involved in the post here, and they are here to speak to us about some important milestones that American Legion is going through this year, as well as on a local level, what they have coming up. So thank you for joining us, Mario and Clark. We are happy to have you today. And you guys have been both involved for over 30 years with American Legion. Let's start with you, Mario. Right. Can you tell us a bit about your background, your service?
Well, let's see, I went in the service when I was 17. My mother had a sign, and I went in right after the Korean War, about a month or two later. But I'm still considered a Korean veteran, but I was stationed in Germany for 2.5 years. During what they called then the Cold War. That was in the 50s and early 60s. And then I come home and just did my thing here. That's
and what branch of the military
Army.
was that? The Army?
U.S. Army.
And what about you, Clark?
I was in the U.S. Navy Air, and I went in 1948. And after I was in a couple of years, I was assigned to Aerial Gunnery School. And about 2 weeks after I graduated, the Korean War broke out. So I had immediate notification that my squadron was deploying to Korea.
Wow.
And I was assigned to a Navy bomber squadron.
And how long were you in the service for?
I was in a total of 10 years active duty, and then I was out for a short period, and I decided to go back in, and I went back in for another 24 years in the Naval Air Reserve.
Wow. And now you both have found your way to Price, and here you are now very active in the American Legion here. And American Legion on a national level is celebrating 99 years this year. Actually, mid-March is the anniversary, right? And so coming up steady on 100 years, which is exciting. Can you tell us if there are any particular celebrations, or how do they honor the anniversary as a whole?
I think nationwide, you're going to have a lot of celebrations, commemoratives. We plan it here. What we have going is in the works still, because, but I think we just plan on making people notice what the American Legion does.
And for those that don't know, can you give us kind of a summary of what the American Legion is? What does it do?
Well, it's a veterans organization. Started in 1918. Well, they met in 1918, and then the Legion was chartered in 1919, right after the First World War. But their purpose was to continue to help the veterans coming back from wars. At the time, if you were a veteran and the war was over, you come home and you just put on your coveralls and then started like you left. And if you were wounded or that, they didn't have all these VA and everything else that they have today. But after the First World War, and the Legionnaires got involved with a lot of helping fellow veterans and their communities, then in the Second World War, after that, then they were instrumental in getting the GI Bill of Rights passed, which boosted the economy, and every soldier that, or sailor or any veteran that come out, they could get low housing loans. They had better opportunities than they did after the First World War. They were recognized as somebody that served their country, and they, the country just should pay him a little more than just, thanks for serving. Because there was a lot of wounded come out of the Second World War, and now, as you see, there's a lot coming out of all these last wars that have been coming out. So, anything you got to say, Clark?
That's right, no, not very much on that. I just saying that I think the first formation meeting they had was in France, if I remember correctly. Is where they held the first one. That was in 1918, I believe it was.
Right after the armistice was signed.
Yeah, it was after the armistice was signed.
Paris.
And Then shortly thereafter, the Legion got its charter from Congress to form. And that's when it all started, and that was in about 1919, along in there.
And there's been a lot of work since
Been a
then.
lot of work since.
And Price, the post number 3, came along only just a few years after.
After that.
Right.
And that was, what year was that?
That was probably in the early 20s, I suspect.
1923, I believe.
23.
And how did that come about? How did this Price post form?
It was formed by the veterans here. There's a few of them got together, and I don't know all the particulars, but somehow or another, they opened it up for registration for a different post. And there was a race to get to Salt Lake to get your charter in. And there was one post, well, 2 posts got in there at the same time, but one just beat the other one out by
Nephi and Salt Lake.
by minutes.
Yeah, Nephi's number
And
1.
They
Salt
got
Lake
done,
number 2.
and we were just fortunate enough to be number 3.
I know, I love that bit of history because I think a lot of people wonder, why number 3? That's interesting. So,
Well, like I was telling you, that one of our old members and commanders, Ted Thomas, had told me he was one of them that ran up there. And he told me that I believe as they walked in the door, Salt Lake beat them by 2 or 3 steps. They got in the door, so that's why Salt Lake got number 2. Nephi was already number 1.
Salt Lake was throwing some
Yeah, they
elbows to
did
get in there first, huh?
They didn't want Carbon County boys up there. But,
Oh, they were
but
trying to
that's
beat
why
ya.
we got number 3.
Well, that is an awesome bit of history. So since that time, there has been a lot of involvement here in the area. American Legion has been very involved in the community and various events that you host, all kinds of things. Can you tell us a bit about what is on your plate for this year? Are there certain things that are in the works?
Well, so far we haven't. We've had a couple of meetings and getting a few things together. I think the main thing we're starting off was to get recognition in the community, and we're going to do that by, of course, we're going to have some things like insignias and that kind of thing on hats and things that we've got, and so we're going to let people notice we're around
Of
and
course.
who we are. And we're also thinking about having an open house at the Legion Post as soon as we can get things squared away there.
Invite people in.
Invite them in for like open house for one day or something along that line.
That would be great. And every year, there is also a ceremony that takes place at the Peace Gardens. Can you speak
Correct.
to that? I think that has been a great event each year, and there's usually a pretty good turnout.
There is.
We do the Veterans Day, then Memorial Day.
Yes.
It's very personal to all of us on Veterans Day that we want to honor the veterans, living and dead, that give up their life, or a lot of them with injuries and that they've given up a lot more than what they would have. But we want to recognize them as fellow veterans.
Yes.
You know, a lot of times people don't know who we are until we do a funeral, military funeral. And I think Clark and I have done, I was counting the other day, and if you average 30 a year, which I know we've done more
I
than
know
that.
we've done more than that.
And I've been in the post for 30 years, well, 30 some years, commander for about 29 or 30. You've been in the post for about the same time.
About the same time.
I think we've done, just the 2 of us, have done a combination of close to 600 funerals
My
or more.
goodness.
And we're doing 3 this week.
3 this
Today,
Wow.
we done one today, one tomorrow, and one Saturday.
Well, you guys are certainly very involved in it. I think that is so great how involved you are with the community and the outreach that you do and the community service on top of that. Is there something you can tell me? I mean, obviously been around a lot of years and you haven't been in the post for all of them, but can you tell me some of the highlights about what Post 3 here in Price has achieved since its inception?
I think one of them, the Peace Guard.
The Peace Guard is
And I
probably-
think our community efforts, we had a baseball team for many, many years. Then it was dissolved, and then later on now, we got it started again, thanks to.
Are you playing on that team?
No, I wish I could, but they said I can't run fast
can't
enough. But thanks to the efforts of Willie Ellington, the
Yes.
coach,
Yeah.
he has brought it he's helped out a lot of youth in his town.
Yes.
And that is our purpose with the American Legion, especially like here in Price. Help out the youth, serve the community. Most of the veterans, all of them, have served their country. And then when they get back now, they want to serve the community and
Of course.
continue it on. So, but I would think the Peace Garden is one of our biggest accomplishments.
And that was a little over 20 years
25
ago
years
that
ago.
that came about.
26 this year.
And how did that come about? Can you tell me a bit of the history of that?
Well, I was a commander at the time, and I talked to some of the old timers. There was a statue in Hiawatha,
Yes.
and it had been in disarray for many years. The mine was slowly but surely shutting down, and they had tried to get the statue and bring it here to Price, and it was a hard fight because some of the women, mothers that lived there, didn't want anybody to take that
They didn't
statue,
wanna see
even though
it
it was
go.
beat up. And it was put up for, I think, seven veterans in Hiawatha that died in the First World War. That was put up in 1924, 25, I believe.
Yeah, about that time.
And we continued, and the old timers, they kept saying, hey, we got to get that statue or someone else will. Well, little by little, we heard a rumor there was one group that was wanting to get it and take it to Salt Lake. And the statue was put up by the American Legion post in Hiawatha. They paid the full cost of the statue through raffles and sales and everything else in Hiawatha. And I have to understand, Hiawatha was a small mining town.
Yes.
They weren't making too many good wages, but the statue, I believe, cost close to around $2,000
Yeah,
in
about
1970.
2,000 is what we.
Which is
To refurbish.
expensive.
At that time.
It's expensive now.
And little by little, we were lucky. We had Louis Colosimo was our mayor at the time, and he was a Hiawatha boy. He didn't serve in the military, but he knew all the veterans. And we talked to him, and he says, well, if you guys get it, or make arrangements to get it, then I'll make sure the Price finds a place for it. And little by little, through the arguments, and I don't know why we called it the Peace Garden, because it wasn't peace.
There wasn't peace when it
No.
came about, but there is that now.
We had one group that wanted to expand it on one side, and another group wanted to expand it from the north coming down. And all it was where the Peace Garden is now, a pile of rocks, a flat pile of rocks. And we finally convinced through persistence, and I don't know what it was, but we were going every other day to Hiawatha, talk to the council and everything else. And finally the council, they voted on it, I believe it was 2-1, give it to Price.
Well, that's great. Well, before we let you guys go, if someone wants to learn more about the American Legion, specifically the Price Post, how do they reach out to you to learn more?
They can call Nelden Huff, our commander.
Our commander.
650, he's in the book there. And,
Yeah.
And call me at
Yeah.
or
Any
Clark, or any
any
Legionnaire.
Legionnaire they
And they
know.
can help you
Yes,
out.
They would help.
Any
You
Legionnaire, you
bet.
see someone wearing a Legion hat, says Price Post 3, they'll help
Yeah.
you out.
That is great. Well, thank you, gentlemen, so much for joining us and taking us on a little trip down memory lane and talking about what's happening in the future. We really appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
Okay,
You're welcome.
stick around. We're going to be back in a few minutes
Okay.
with more from inside Eastern Utah.